Are you
Drum
ready?
roll, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another rendition of AI Kingdom. Nathan and I, enthusiasts of AI, and we're looking at ways of implementing it in our own businesses and increasing our productivity for our teams. Yeah, welcome to another episode. In this episode, we're going to touch on training AI on not one face, but two faces, our faces. So we're going to look at what technologies are out there to train your AI on and basically deepfake yourself. There's, of course, privacy concerns about that, but there's also real good business cases for this as well, if you can do it well. And so we'll explore some of those ideas. Then we'll move on to probably explaining how you can run this type of AI generation for image generation, both on your own hardware locally, up in the cloud. What's the difference? Some of the methods and processes you can do that. And then we'll cover lastly something that we're interested in, Nathan and I, and we're working towards building some products towards is a short story generation. So that's a really interesting subject too, if you're interested in content creation in general. Nath, over to you. Is there anything you want to talk about in the intro before we get started?
No, I would just encourage people to leave us some comments. If you're one of the few people that are watching this so early, let us know what topics you want us to cover, and we'd love to do a deeper dive into them. Currently, we're kickstarting the whole AI Kingdom company and consulting and building out the infrastructure and team and websites and everything. And so we'll refine that further over time. But if you have ideas, topics, problems you'd like us to address, let us know and we'll do a deeper dive into those. And other than
Cool.
that, Rog, I guess it's over to you if you wanted to share
Okay,
your screen
I'll
and do a bit of
share
a.
my screen.
Should be good today because I think sometimes when we're doing the GPT stuff, it's very text based and it's pretty boring to watch or it feels not interesting.
Yeah,
But I guess the nice thing about doing some of the image generation is it's more visual.
yeah, absolutely. I say that just as I convert to a page full of code. So I wanted to talk about training on your own face. So you can generate images like this. That's of me as a tactical SAS soldier, and images like this, me on Mount Everest. There's some great things you can do with this, and some things come to mind when just creating our YouTube channel is eventually we'd like to be able to use this to help us create the thumbnails for our YouTube channels of both Nathan and I on there with emotive expression related to the content that the video is about. Which, of course, you go to YouTube and you'll see anyone who has like a talk show style show that their thumbnails are always have their face. So we could take a whole heap of photos of our faces and of different expressions and get a VA to decide which one's the most relevant and create it in Canva or some kind of image software, or we could try and get AI to do
I
it.
think this really comes back to your vision, like Rog, of wanting to streamline the whole YouTube creation process. So the idea being that we do one of these videos, it's just sit down and record because it's what we have the time to do. And then after that, all the post processing and everything is done automatically because
Yep.
we don't want to have a team behind us. We don't want to have the complexity of that. We don't want to have the cost of that. We just want to be able to do something pretty lean and simple. And so I think I feel like sometimes we're optimizing like the stuff that doesn't need to be done, but I
Mm.
think it comes back to your overall vision of wanting to automate the whole pipeline. Doesn't matter how small the part is, because
Yeah.
then once the whole thing is done, you can just run it endlessly, and you don't have to have any human intervention, which is a very attractive proposition. So that
Exactly. And I
that's the
feel like
context for this project and really what we're
that's
doing
right.
today.
Yeah, so that's good sort of context. And our whole channel is built around this concept of using AI to make creative decisions for us. So this is like decisions about the title, description, even the editing to a degree. We're still exploring that, but currently, if we have any shorts or smaller clips of this video or a similar video, the decision on what is relevant is based on AI making a call given a script, and then we will just work out the start time and end times of those components. So there's a lot of, if we stay relentless towards automating the whole flow of these videos, this whole channel is true to its name, and that we're building a AI kingdom around AI tools. We don't really have, my video editor is my laptop and the AI that's on it, not me using Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro to patch together some stuff. So what you're seeing is the real raw footage of us having a normal conversation in real time, and then I pass that into these functions that make all these creative decisions for us.
I'm really interested, just as an aside, I'm really interested in contrasting this because I don't mind paying a little bit of money to see if we get better quality if humans do it. So I'm interested to see if we set up the same process, and we could even do it for a few videos, like
Yeah.
automate it, but with humans in the loop. So we automatically write the job description, but then get a human to do it, like to
Yep.
post produce the video or something like that. Because there may be elements where it doesn't make sense. The technology is not there yet to fully automate it, but if we make it a closed loop so that in terms of a process, the human is just another node. They get some data in, they put some data out, and then we can still automate it. So I'm curious to see like how we can do
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah, me too. And I think mine is like, how far can we go now? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I want to have the infrastructure in place for when the small nodes improve, like the AI side of it improves. So then for us to adapt into suddenly being able to create high quality, really high quality information type videos or something like that, or making the AI decide exactly what parts we should edit and do jump cuts to, and all of that kind of more complicated stuff, which you do need a human for. I just want to have the tools in place to quickly add it instead of building the whole thing from scratch. Anyway, this is a bit of a tangent. Let's focus on image generation. And you saw the goal of this is to create some pictures of Nathan and I for ultimately in the end for our thumbnails. But to begin with, it's just to train a model on that. There's a few different ways you can do it. The most common one is using Dreambooth. Dreambooth is a training algorithm and method to train these models to get a CPKT file out of it, and then you can make inference based on that. Now, one way, there's a few Google Colab books out there to do this. This one I use from the last Ben. It's a fast, stable diffusion notebook. And I've got it open, not there. I just gave you a bit of a preview. I've got it open here. So you can just follow the instructions in the README file, and it will show you there's a full step-by-step guide here on getting the notebook and getting started. But I'm going to go through roughly and talk about each of the steps for it. And of course, the first thing we need to do is have images to train on. So usually you have about 10 to 20 images of each person to train on. I should make a distinction. A lot of the Dreambooth training collab books out there are for training on one face. This is one of the few that is about training on multiple faces, which I think is really important because sometimes you do want to train on more than one face. Particularly in our case, it's our business. So we're both going into the business together. We want to both have our faces to the business. We want to be able to promote and be the front runners of the business. So therefore, having a single model for both of us is more efficient as opposed to having a single model like each, which is fine. A model ends up being around 2 GB. If you have two models, you have two, but you also have additional code elements if you want to create images in the future as well. So it's always better to have one model if you can do it well. So basically the steps are in this book, and this collab book, is to connect your Google Drive, install the dependencies. You just hit run, connect your Google Drive, and it'll ask you to authenticate. I've got my drive connected here. You hit model download. Initially, it downloads the Stable Diffusion 1.5 model from Hugging Face, and you can also do this with the 2.1 model if you want. Alternatively, you can put a path to a custom model that's deployed on Hugging Face. I believe you might be able to do one possibly from like an S3 instance or something like that as well. Yeah, but most people would just use, you can see an example here, the pathway to a Hugging Face model. And then you set up Dreambooth. You've got to give it a session name and a model version. And then you just hit run. That only takes 1 second to run. And then you have instance images. So instance images, it gives you some discussion here on what the images should look like. The goal would be to create images. They all have to be 512 by 512. It does have a smart sort of crop system mechanism built in, but I actually ended up building my own, and I'll give you a sample of some of our images. So if you go, I'll just quickly go into, so
How
here's,
did the images end up coming out of me? Did you have enough? Because you didn't have enough training data at one stage. Was that just the
yeah, I
model?
still think after trying it all, I still think our training data can improve. These are all just raw images of me in all different shapes, sizes and faces, angles, whatever we can do. It's good that a lot of people talk about your eyes. You got to make sure you get your eyes in different positions, different facial expressions, a different lighting. That's one thing that I didn't do well. I think different lighting. And then, so these are all my images. Some of them were HEIC images from my iPhone, so I had to account for that. And then the result is a whole heap of images that are all 512 by 512. I've got a lot of images of both me and Nathan in all different configurations and different faces, and yeah, it just goes on.
Did you
So
just
I am
manually crop those and
no, so
realize?
there's two ways to do it. One is if you're not into coding, you can use a service called Brime, which a lot of people, or Burm, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, and you can load your images from here, and then you can just each one you can adjust where the window sits so it crops properly. But if you're a bit like me and a bit computer sciencey, I jumped into created my own fine tune tools thing, and I'd probably be happy to put this on Git repository. But basically, what you do is you pass it in the directory for wherever the person's photos are, and it converts HEIC photos into PNGs, and then convert all the output files are in PNGs. And it also does face detection and scaling, and finds the largest face in the shot if you end up giving it a whole of candid photos with a few people's faces in it, and then it resizes everything to 512 to 512, and then saves it all as an output thing, and makes sure that it's all the correct resolution for training. And so that saves me a lot of time. I also did it just for fun. Did it in parallel, so it runs. If you've got 100 images, it will do it pretty quickly on at least on my Mac. Let me just get back to where I need to be, and then so once you've got that, you then upload it to your Google Drive account to a location on your Google Drive, and then you copy that location into this image folder section. So when you run that, it will load all the images in and then tell you if there's any errors or issues. Now, these next two sections are optional. It's really only if you're training on a specific face, you don't need to do concept images. But if you're training on like a style, or you're trying to build a model around a specific style, you want to give it an additional real life examples of that style. So you might have another folder with 30 or 40, 100 photos that are also cropped to a 512 to 512, just to give it some more guidance. Otherwise, it can fit the model. So that's just something to look into if you're looking at training styles. But since we're here because we're faces, we're not going to look at doing regularization images. Okay, so training. So it's got some examples here. The default settings here for training the model is a data set of 10 pictures, which if you've got a data set of 10 pictures for training a face, then doing what's called UNet training with steps of 500 or lower is fine. Because I've got way more than 10 pictures and I've got 2 subjects, I upped that significantly so we could train it. Everything else is pretty good default. It will give you some guidance on the text encoder training as well. So there's 2 parts of the training. One is the text encoder, one is the UNet training, which is the actual output of the actual image generation machine. And the text encoder is the text input that you put in. How do you actually interpret that as a prompt? And then, it gives you some range ideas here, and there's some instructions there. But really, they're the only 2 settings that you need to look at. You can change the learning rate, but I just tend to just use the default ones. If you're not getting great results, you can what's called resume training to do more steps and try and improve it to see if you can get a better result. And then basically all you do is hit run. And then it actually takes about 20 minutes to run in this collab. I think my runtime environment I've got set to GPU. I think I am on the premium GPU plan on Google Colab to run this. And you can, if you want, if you feel like being a bit of a geek, you can go into and view the code. Yeah, so that's always something. Oops, I did the wrong. Just hide that again. Hide code. All right. And then once you've done that, the whole end-to-end process, like the largest time will be pre-processing the images. And then once you've done that end-to-end, it's only really 30 minutes to get it to this stage. There's another Dream Booth collab out there, which takes much longer, but effectively this is a bit more optimized and more efficient. Then we've got an option here to upload the trained model to Hugging Face. So if you wanted to then deploy that model so other people can access it, you can put it up there. Or you can set it as private and reuse it for other things. So at the moment, I've hit test the train model, and what this does is actually create a web server for Automatic 1111, I think it's called, which is the Stable Diffusion GUI, graphical user interface, that you can actually run inference and tests on. Now, I've set that up already. I think I've got it running here. So this is what the Automatic 1111 is. As you can see, it's got the session, which is the AI Kingdom CKPT file, which is what was trained. If you've connected Drive, it will automatically be added to your drive. So if you go to your G Drive, then Fast Stream Booth and Sessions, you'll have a heap of sessions or whatever ones you've created in there. And then when you click that, you'll see there is actually a session.ckpt file in there. And so that's what we're now going to run inference on. And you can see I've already ran inference here on this prompt, which is a 3D Cyberpunk style of a 20-year-old FTC Roger C. Now, there's something that I totally forgot to mention in the very beginning. When you create your training images, you have to, in this case where there's two subjects, you need to make sure there's a unique identifier that's characters only at the beginning of the name of each file. So you can see, I don't know if you can see my screen, but FTC, I've just called it FTC Roger C. So the reason why I've done that is because it has to be unique. If I just put Roger in there or Nathan in there, the model no doubt already has a Nathan in there because it's trained on a large percentage of the internet, or there's celebrities, or there's other things in there. So it has to be something unique. You can toy around with creating unique character string or anything. You just need to know that for every subject that you have in there, it needs to be unique. And so I actually ended up combining both. Haven't got it here. If you have a look at my training data, Stable Diffusion, faces, Roger and Nathan, and then I've got a folder here that's combined, and this is what I trained on. This is the directory that I trained on. So it's got all FTC Nathan K and FTC Roger C. So they're the two tags that I now use in my prompts to call that subject in place. So yeah, this is a 3D cyberpunk style 20-year-old FTC Roger C as Wolverine superhero from Marvel in an action scene with his bow and arrow. So this is actually wrong because just before I was writing Hawkeye from Marvel. So there's just a couple of things that have changed here. Maybe I'll say with his claws out on the streets of New York, close up face, high detail eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. So I've also added what's called a negative prompt, which is recessed eyes, because I noticed when I was doing inference on me, for some reason, it was putting a lot of recessed, my eyes were recessed, which was a bit odd. We've got shadow on eyes, we've got old, it was making me really old for some reason, and mask and deformed. So I've just put them in an attempt to reduce those things from happening. Then you have a scheduler or sampling method. Now, we don't need to go into the complexities of this, and I'm probably not going to do it justice. Nonetheless, when you do inference, you need to use a scheduler, and some of these work better than others. So generally speaking, you start with Euler, and then you can move to some of these other ones because they're a little bit more complex and have a higher running time. I've found good results with the DPM plus 2M Keras, but I've also had good results with some of the other ones. It's really about just trying until you get some good results. Now, sampling steps is how many sampling steps does it do? If we knock that right back down to 2, you'll see that the image barely gets generated. So I'll just run that. It's only going to take 4 seconds. So it hasn't finished creating a proper image yet. It hasn't iterated enough for it to generate something that's actually tangible. There's a setting called Restore Faces. So that's an additional filter that sort of goes on the top, which helps specifically for faces if you've got faces in there. And there's also, in this case, it's got what's called High Res Fix. I'm not 100% sure how that works, but essentially it enables you to do some upscaling and things like that. And sometimes when you upscale something, it's not an exact replica of the original image. If you're going from 512 to 2000 pixels, sometimes if you use some of the AI methods, it's not a linear transition. High-res fixes to try and stop and compensate for that. So you can do here, you can do batch sizes, you can do batch counts. So it's actually done a pretty good job for some of them. That doesn't look like me too much. Looks more like Wolverine. This one's looking like me a bit more. That one's looking like me a bit more with weird hair. But then you can change this to be like a photo. So if you add a photo of, because by default it's added this cyberpunk feel, but also this illustration slash 3D animation feel. So we can say photo, and you can even add weights.
One of the guys I was watching this morning when he was doing it, he used the term, like when he was training, yes, he put the unique identifier. I might have glazed over it, but he also put like a photo of a man and yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
A
So some of
photo
the
of a man.
other,
And that then I guess helps the existing model know where to find like what it is that it's training against. So yes, it's a photo of Roger, a man. Or it's a photo, not a picture, and then it's a man. And so with that information, it can locate in its neural network what weights it needs to tweak.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, so the fast stable diffusion model that I'm using doesn't require you to have the class definitions in there, whereas other Dream Booth collabs enables you to set up the class just once as well. So you can start with if you're training on a dog, if you're training on a man or a girl, it helps you find those weights. It helps the model find the weights faster. But in this case, this fast stable diffusion by the last bend doesn't require you to do that, which is cool because it still gets similar results to doing it the other way as well. Anyway, I'll run this. Okay, so this is going to give me some results here. We'll see how accurate they are. Sometimes they look like they're going to be really good and then they turn out a bit funny. It's definitely given me a much broader jaw.
Just while you're doing that,
I'm Batman.
I'm setting up the stable. What's it called? The stable diffusion web UI from automatic 1111.
Yep.
One.
Yep,
I don't know
that's
if
what
you
I've got
played
at the
with.
moment.
That's what you're using there.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
And
So
then, yeah, cool. And that'll be to run locally, which is pretty cool as well. So we can actually strip this out and go photo of, let's forget this cyberpunk stuff. And let's get back to, if we're doing thumbnails, what we don't really need all of this fancy stuff. We just basically want it on a white background. 3D photo, I probably don't even need 3D. So let's go photo of 20-year-old FTC Roger, close up of face, realistic, on a white background. And we want to say FTC Roger close up of happy face. Or maybe shot. Okay, this might be, I'll just go happy face. Yeah, and that's just a simple prompt. And let's have a look, see what happens. Now, the thing with this is that you always have to do multiple variations. And in my experience so far, it's difficult to just do one call and get a very accurate picture. So you have to do it in batch sizes and find the best one. So for some reason, the model makes me look older and spaces my eyes further apart. And this is what I think there's something going on with my training data, which gives a lot of shadows around the eyes, recessed eyes. Maybe I was really tired. This one's kind of put some glasses in, but hasn't finished it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it makes me look at least 5 to 10 years older than I am,
say
which
like,
is
and like you've been drinking your whole life.
yeah. And I'm a smoker. Like it's all there. So I'll try Nathan, if you don't
Oh
mind,
dear.
Nath.
Yeah, you go for it. I'm sure it'll be amusing. Doing it for the lols.
And so the goal would be is if this can get accurate, like you could take, that's not right. Oh, sorry, I didn't put the right identifier in. Just wait for that to finish.
Yeah, there's a lot of other modules that you can load in this.
There is, yes. So I haven't really explored that a lot. There's a new way of training your face that a lot of people use, which is much quicker, called Aurora. And what
I think you
I'm
need to specify I'm a man because it seems to be getting a bit confused.
have to see 20-year-old.
I've been playing
FTC.
around with it. I find something like I'm not familiar with photography, but sometimes I know what I want. Like I want like a headshot or I want like a back shot or something. And I didn't know what terms to use because I assume it's been trained on data that's been coded by professional photographers or whatever. And so I asked ChatGPT, what do you call it when you have a photo from like the back? I didn't want to be able to see the person's face. And it was like, oh, it's typically called a back view or a back shot or something like that. So then I used that term
Yeah,
along with close up, portrait, like different lighting
and
variants or
maybe I'll
whatever,
use portrait.
and it would then do a better job.
Yeah, portrait's good, and you can actually, depending on the model you're using, but usually you can do more advanced F. You could talk about aperture, or you could do studio lighting.
Let me find the prompts that I use. Give me a sec.
It is very much about prompt engineering and how you can define it. Oh, I did make
I
a
think what's
mistake.
probably more interesting for the users is to figure out how we came up with the prompts, because what I found is that I didn't know. I'm not a graphic artist, and so I didn't know really where to look for the terms to use. And so that's where my process was to find realistic, is it dreamlike. Okay, it's from my son for his artwork for his YouTube channel. So dreamlight backshot of a handsome Australian young man wearing colorful clothes, comma, a boy, what was it? A young boy, game developer, coding on a comma, coding on a computer, comma, sitting on a gaming chair, comma, back view, comma, hackerspace, comma, maker night market. And so it goes on and on. It's quite a lot. But I
Yeah,
think the things that are interesting are I specify blue eyes, full body photorealistic, aperture 1.8, lens flare, melancholy expression, extra dimensional, ultra HD, HDR, 8K, cinematic lighting, extremely high details.
HDR is a good one. I've used that a few times.
And so didn't come up with these myself though. What I did is I went onto some like site and I found like I just looked up like a picture of a boy on a computer or something. And then based on that I looked for one that I liked, and then I saw the prompts that they were using, and then I was able to tweak it based on that. And I just found that gave me a better starting point than what I could do myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm starting to using some of those to improve the ones I've got here, but there's still something. This is one thing I get stuck on, is there still seems to be something wrong with my training data or something, and my face is a bit morphed. And maybe there's someone on here that will have some ideas on how to improve that.
They are coming out pretty detailed. It's just that they're not. Yeah, it's just that they're not.
Yeah, it's just
They're
missing.
not a
It's
close
missing some
representation.
element.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's why a lot of people are saying you have to generate, when you're doing it of yourself, you have to generate hundreds, tens of hundreds of photos and pick the 5 that are actually decent, which at the moment doesn't really work with my ethos on trying to automate the whole process, unless I can use AI to choose the best ones. But that's really challenging task to do, but could be possible soon. So yeah, so
That's a whole domain of deep learning, is like adversarial GAN networks,
mm,
generative adversarial networks, where you would have one model generate the result and the other one evaluate it. And so the idea of the model is to come up with things that can fool the one that's evaluating it.
yeah, so that's actually stuff that I'm looking into to see how far we can get with this. So we can essentially deploy our own model and onto a server somewhere and run inference on it probably a heap of times, and then find the best model, find the best image to use. I would almost use this one as just a look. I don't know what the words would be, but I look like
Very
I'm
caffeinated.
very caffeinated.
Yeah, I would just do that. I think you're exactly right. The thing is that people should generate like 100 at the moment, and then you haven't really put in a lot of training data. So I think generating,
Mm,
yeah, maybe 100, and then just picking the ones that work for you is what people have to do at the moment.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. And so that kind of leads to the next part that I wanted to talk about. Was it will lean into what Nathan will talk about soon about running inference on your own machine, but you can run inference on other servers as well. So I use a service called banana.dev, which is a serverless framework for GPU purposes. So if you have anything that runs on a GPU and you don't want to buy a massive GPU unit to run locally, you can use banana.dev, or there's another one called runpod to deploy your model quite quickly. And then what you can do is just run inference, and what it does is it cold boots the first time you run, can take up to 3 minutes, and it loads in your four gigabyte model from S3 or Hugging Face, and then you're able to run inference just like we were just now with the automatic 1111 from your client computer or a server. So I can run inference right here. I'll show you an example of one I just did. So this script is basically calling the banana generate image server, and I can use any number of models, pre-trained models. There's the Stable Diffusion 1.5, there's the Dreamlike Photo Real model. There's one that's similar to Midjourney, but not quite as good, but it's called OpenJourney that I use, and then it then creates these images based on whatever the prompt is. So I define the prompt here, and then you can do in your negative prompt as well. I'll actually run this, I think, while we're here. And you can see I've also got a prompt here where I was using FTC Roger C. So you can actually load in custom models that you've built and basically deploy them into a production environment for you to call on. But that production environment, like, it doesn't need to be like a big multi-million-dollar app, and you're paying 0.005 cents per second or so to run this inference, and inference is usually pretty quick. So of course, if you're doing this thousands of times a day, like, it really adds up. But at that point, you're hoping to be like a startup that you're making a lot of decent money. Whereas I'm just using it for one or two calls a day, like it's nothing. So I'm literally just paying cents, if not dollars, or $1 or $2 at the end of the month to do it. So for our purposes and just creating one-off thumbnails, it's a great way to deploy your own model. But this kind of lends to an additional case of that we've spoken about in other episodes, is data sovereignty and how much control do you want to have of your data. And this on-demand style model is really cool, but ultimately you've still got a deep fake model potentially of yourself hosted somewhere on someone's server. If it gets hacked or whatever, someone could access it and potentially deep fake you and assume your identity. And how far that goes, man, in the future with metaverse and stuff like that, you don't even know. What's great about potentially having your own local hardware to do this stuff is that you're walled off from the rest of the world to a degree, and you're not hosting your personal models on a big target, which is a large multi-billion-dollar company who also, as we all know, is not impervious. And so so that's something we'll talk about in a second with Nathan a bit more, and he'll show us some examples, hopefully, not to put any pressure on Nathan. And I just wanted to quickly show you, this prompt I put in was photo of the back of a muscular man in the foreground with a clothing and a trench coat looking over a city. The city is dark and futuristic style landscape with holographic signs, not focal point, aperture of f2.0. Lighting is dark and there is lens flare from the glowing city. Everything is wet, cinematic lighting, realistic. So we'll see how it turns out. So this is what the output was.
Yep. Okay.
Now, this is called the Dreamlike Photo Model. It's not as good as the type of results you can get from Midjourney, I found, but it is decent, and it seems to be better than the straight Stable Diffusion 1.5 models. Yeah, so that kind of sums up my process of doing inference training and inference for text to image generation.
Cool. Sorry if I'm a bit distracted here. I'm trying to share my screen with you, but I wanted to do it in a way that was cool. So while you were busy doing that, I was setting up Stable Diffusion to run locally, which I had working previously, but I was always doing it from the command line. I guess, Roger, if you want to stop sharing your
Yeah, I
screen,
was just
then
having a stop sharing. Yeah, cool.
yeah, so I could probably try and see if I can get you back on here, Rog. Yeah, so there we go.
Hello.
There we go. Something like that. Yeah, while this was running, I was able to go through and set up locally what you were doing there in the cloud, Rog.
Yep.
So I set up a channel for my son recently, and I didn't want to use his real picture or his real name or anything like that. And so what I did is I went through and found, like, I generated an image of a kid sitting at a computer, and I wanted kind of like a back shot where you couldn't see the face. So to most people, they wouldn't even know. And I wanted it to be like into tech and gaming and stuff like that. This is the prompt I was telling you about before, and it just about made my GPU blow up. So I was worried that would sometimes when the 3090 overheats, or yeah, it has crashed before. So yeah, it seems to have generated. I don't know, how does it compare to generating in the cloud? Like if we change this to wearing like red clothes, and I just generate more. So this is going to run now, and we'll see how many it generates. But you see now it's giving red clothes to this fella, and I think this technique is more useful when you're trying to generate something that's where you're looking for an image. Like for us, we're looking for a thumbnail or a profile image on some of our sites, and it doesn't. Maybe we want to automatically generate avatars based on a description, or just randomly generate an avatar so the website looks and feels more engaging and is more visually interesting, but without having to disclose like who the person actually is, or maybe that we don't want to ask for a photo because it's personally identifiable information. We can just have a text description of someone and generate the avatar that way, which is another way to, I think companies were doing profiling and matching based on like gravitars or avatars there for a while. But maybe Rog, you can comment on how quickly this is going compared to how it goes in the cloud, because I'm running a 3090 at the moment.
I think, yeah, okay, so you've got the Euler A, you're running 20 steps, so you're doing 3 variations,
if I
512 by
s- if I
512.
switch over to here, you'll see like the GPU in this particular machine is at 83 degrees, which is pretty warm. And I actually capped the power at 300 watts, and it can go up to about 330. It's only for this particular model. I've seen people say you can run it in much smaller GPUs. We're only using a fraction of the actual memory here at the moment.
Oh, interesting. Yep.
Yeah, but I think when you're training, there's a way you can leverage all the more memory that you have available to do larger batch sizes. But I
Yep.
just basically randomly picked some options here to see what would happen.
Yeah, I feel like when I was at your house recently, we did a training of inference on 100 images or something. I think that seemed to be way quicker than what this has been. Oh, actually,
Yeah, so I
perhaps
generated one. I think I
count.
was.
Okay, I see. Yep.
I don't know how many that's actually generating.
I actually think this is way faster than doing it in the cloud to do that many. Did you just do that now? Yeah. Yeah, so and you saw before it was probably taking around 30 seconds to a minute to do 4 in the cloud.
So I think are they using actual GPUs? It feels like they're maybe doing inference on CPUs.
I had GPU runtime selected. I'm not too sure what the GPU runtime. I think it's meant to be A100s, but I reckon it's like virtualized or something. There's some kind of weird thing going on.
Yeah, because this you saw how fast this ran, but it does really clobber the system.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
Yep.
if you were here, you would hear it. I've got a blower GPU, so you can hear it. It just
Yeah,
it's
but everything about image generation, the common catchphrase is GPU go burr.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I've actually recently built a machine for friends which has a 3060 in it, not a 3090 like Nathan's got. It's got 12 gigabytes of VRAM, which from what I understood is the minimum basically required to do some of these text to image generation stuff, particularly inference. That's our main goal. We're probably not planning to do a lot of training on it. Yeah, and it's got an Intel Core i9 10 core PC. So it's a mid-range, I would say, mid-spec computer for this type of stuff. So it's definitely possible. I think in Australian dollars, that was about 2,300. So you could, if you're in the US, you could work that out roughly. I don't know what the prices are like over there, but I know prices for GPUs have skyrocketed over the last couple of years because of this, but also because of mining
It was all the crypto.
cryptocurrency.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
have been reporting a lot cheaper prices now, but honestly, I didn't see the price for my particular GPU drop that much. I think because people are using them for machine learning still.
That's right. The 3090 is one of the most popular ones for this. And on RunPod, which is like banana.dev, but you can choose instances on specific hardware types, which is cool. So you can choose a 3090 or an A100.
This was the
Um,
one. This is my particular one, which I really liked because it was a two wide, whereas most of them are three wide, and it also blows the air out the back here. So it doesn't have. It actually, this fan isn't drawing air in there. I think it's pulling it in from the back or just around there, but it's exhausting it all out the back. And
it's only got a
with
single
these,
fan,
yeah, it's got a single fan. And it just spins crazy
really
fast.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah, so people complain about them being noisy.
Yeah.
So but the reason I got this is because I wanted to put multiple of them into a particular unit, into a particular server, and that still is the plan. And so one of the ways that we can run things is, yes, we can run things in the cloud, and it can be possible to do things that way. In terms of making use of, I'm really big on. I run an agency, and already our bill for cloud-based costs, as subscriptions and things, is in the thousands of dollars a month, and so wherever possible, I like to make use of the existing resources that we have rather than buy more. And that kind of dovetails in with this notion of home labs. So there's this kind of trend that people may or may not be aware of home labs. I'll see if I can find some good images here. But it's just people at home who want to play around with more enterprise grade stuff because either they're professionals and they want to learn about it. They don't want to learn about it on the job and break something, or maybe they just have a particular interest. So that's a route that we've gone down more as a small business, is to set up like a home business lab using enterprise equipment to basically build out stuff like this that gives us a whole heap of capability in house using, usually it's like the last generation enterprise equipment, which people have told me in Australia is actually much cheaper than it is in other parts of the world. I think there's a surplus of enterprise grade stuff here that's just, you can imagine how many servers there are in data centers in Australia. And then when they rotate the stock and they put in new servers, it's like they've got all these things are massively heavy. What are they going to do with them? Where are they going to ship them? So they flood the market periodically, and they're pretty powerful for the cost point. It's just that they're overkill for what most people need. But running an agency or something like that, or if you're an IT enthusiast, it can be a good opportunity for you to pick up some powerful resources and then build on it over time. So a lot of the way that applications are deployed now is in containers or on virtual machines. And so one of the hypervisors that I should give a plug out to, we'll go into Techno him, because he is one of the YouTubers that I've been following, and he has a great kind of series on home labs, and I've watched him over the years build up pretty powerful, pretty cool setup, and I jive with his approach to using different tools and everything to manage that. Seems not loading, but we can probably just go here. Okay, Firefox wants to restart. Just updated. So I guess I'll have to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. I think this is our previous episode. We spoke about the advent of chat personal assistants and how there could be two ways that could roll out in the future, because it seems inevitable that eventually we'll have a chat assistant that everyone will have a personal assistant essentially that could do real life things for you. You send an email to someone, check your calendar, or read out your schedule, help you prioritize tasks, like all of these types of things. And we thought, okay, that the two ways that this could be rolled out, one is going to be billion-dollar companies owning all your data, and as you're communicating to your personal assistant, you could be talking about some pretty personal things about your schedule and your whereabouts. Are you comfortable with that data going to a remote server and being used and farmed by big business? Or would you more prefer having your own server in your own house that you can put in a rack and then take it with you if you're renting, and plug it into your next place? And then essentially that's your AI at home. And wherever you go, maybe it eventually connects to your phone. And there was a project we spoke about called Project Raven, where you have this walled off approach to your own data and the personal assistant to help you stay productive and keep up with the world, but not giving away all your personal information. So that is an interesting way. And this is where Nathan's coming from.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the whole process of taking control of all the cloud stuff that we used to do. We used to be, by default, you'd find a cloud provider that would do that for you, and that would be another whatever $10 a month per user. But then as your staff grows from 10 to 20, like it's non-linear, the costs of software starts to skyrocket. So we made a policy decision to, wherever possible, deploy, particularly for things that were development focused, not production focused, non-critical, or things that we could deal with not being critical, having 99.99% of uptime instead of 99.99999% uptime, which is okay for things like, maybe a company chat or something like that. For it to go down 20 minutes a week periodically is okay. We can deal with that because it's
Yes, it
usually happening
kind of does
outside of
make the
business hours.
assumption that your infrastructure in your country or your region is stable, like your power doesn't turn off all the time, and your internet is pretty
Well,
stable and decent speed.
that's the thing, though. The thing is that the money that we've saved, we could easily put towards getting a dedicated fiber connection at the office. We could put towards putting solar panels on the roof. So it's not, or even buying the building. So it's
Mm,
not like the costs are not going somewhere else. It just, you, rather than paying them to somebody else,
yeah.
if you can think, what level of reliability do I actually need? Do I actually need to do this in the cloud? Or could I deal with it running? Like, what's the difference between a 2 gigahertz? Like, even when you look at you start looking into the details of when you get a CPU optimized server on DigitalOcean, what are you
Mm,
actually getting? I can tell you it's not a 3900K, which if I want something CPU optimized, I have here in the office. And so I can run things much faster here than I could in the cloud. And if I had to pay for that in the cloud, it would be multiples of what I'd pay for it here because there's margins, there's middlemen. But that's not to say we don't do things in the cloud. We have redundancies in terms of systems. So yeah, but that said, what I wanted to do is the home lab side of things, like just plugging Techno Tim here, and there's a few other guys that we'll go through over time. But even on the homepage here is Proxmox. Proxmox. Who is the other gentleman that I should give a plug out to? I will.
Ah, yeah, I know the guy with the beard.
Lawrence Systems, total legend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's been covering. This was my introduction into Proxmox. He's got a whole series on Proxmox and pfSense, which is the technology we use. So Proxmox is used for as a hypervisor, and you can. I wanted to have a system that was reliable, and so does have the ability to cluster multiple servers together. And so when I started, I wanted to have 3 servers, cluster them together, and so that there was failover. If any one of those servers had an issue with the power supply or something, the virtual machine would just move to another one automatically and start up. I wouldn't say we're fully there yet, but we've built out the foundation for it, and we've found the uptime of what's there to be so good that we haven't really needed to go to that level of high availability yet. But this lets you, a hypervisor is basically an operating system that sits on the bare metal and gives you the ability to run virtual machines or containers. It doesn't necessarily have a lot of bells and whistles. It usually doesn't have a graphical interface. It doesn't have like things that you don't need if you're not using it as a computer. And
So they're from a non-infrastructure savvy person. They're just like headless computers that you access remotely via command line or Dockerization,
yeah, so
SSH, and
yeah, you can. It does have an interface, and I would love to show you ours, but I don't want to pull up something that is confidential. So I would take here like you have an interface like this, and so you have here your different actual hardware nodes, and then on each hardware node you have a bunch of different VMs, virtual machines, or they could be containers. So I'll just see if I can find some good images here. Here's a good example. So if we open image in a new tab. So you'll typically see something like here's one of the main servers, and then it's got one virtual machine running on it. This server's got one virtual machine, but you could have multiple. They have multiple servers and multiple virtual machines, and then what these black node things are, these like disks things, they're the storage that's available on them. So there's also like different storage. So you can, instead of having one hard drive, you can have a shared storage array as well. So even across multiple machines, they're sharing the same network storage. And so all this to say that you can take existing hardware that you have and start to set up Proxmox on it. You don't need many resources. So if you've got an old computer, an old laptop, you can install Proxmox on it and then start to run VMs on that. So if you have a graphics card sitting around, you can start to put that to use. You can pipe that graphics card through to one of the VMs, set up something like we did before with Stable Diffusion, and then you can have that running locally if you wanted to do something like that.
and that is if you've got an old gaming machine sitting around not getting used that much, this is a good reutilization of that. And ultimately, this is what GPUs were made for, were tasks like this, not so much gaming, but the gaming was a really good thing that came later. But yeah, GPUs are a great way to process these types of large language models and image generation models and text to speech and any of these models quite quickly and more efficiently at home as opposed to a CPU.
Yeah.
But if you could add that to a virtual network and then eventually have 2 or 3 of these machines in your own premises, yes, ultimately scalable with Proxmox.
Yeah, that's right. And then it's a matter of, I'm just going to look up our favorite topic, cyberpunk prompts, and see if I can generate some more just while we chat. So yeah, but that's essentially the path that we've gone down with. So say we want to create something like this, we can jump in here. And this is how I came up with my prompt ideas as well. I would come here and I would, a beautiful
Also,
picture of
some
Bella.
images are published with their prompt, so you can load the image into automatic 1111 and it has like what the prompt was.
Yeah, we
Cool.
can't see that, but if I visit,
Sometimes they strip out the metadata
okay.
before they
So this one's Lexica Art is
yeah,
another one,
lexica art, yeah.
but this is the prompt. So if I was to take this prompt and put it in here, I'm just curious to see what sort of results we'll get. Let's just bump it up a little bit.
That happened almost instantaneously for one image.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe.
I think it generates them pretty quickly. So it's got ETA 1 minute 30, and it's generating. I put a batch size of 21.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's a lot. If you can run on bare metal
Probably should do
GPU,
do
it'll
4,
go
right? Because then it
so
would
much
be.
faster.
Then I wouldn't have this black spot there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Proxmox has a base, setting up your virtual machines and just starting to run anything locally. A couple of services that are good to run, like Nextcloud for storage. We like Rocket Chat for communication. instead of doing. I mean, you can use Slack for free, but Rocket Chat is a great alternative to that. And
Yep.
once you've got these things up and going, you probably want to expose them to the world somehow. I think the PF Sense stuff. This used to be. I think it was an open source project or something, but it got bought by, was it Netgate that bought them, something like that. Oh no, PF Sense is. Yeah, I think it's been bought by Netgate. Yeah, there you go, Netgate. They have some really good products that you can run locally if you need a router, but you can also deploy stuff, even deploy pfSense on a virtual machine. And the reason you want something like this is that this routing software lets you expose, it's one way to expose your services to the internet. So our images are finished.
Wow.
So can we
Which,
do,
sorry, I can't see. And the model
okay.
was the dreamlike photoreal model.
I don't think so. It was just whatever the default one was.
Okay.
I'm gonna check.
Yeah, it just says at the top,
Where am I looking?
pruned and EMA only. Oh, 1.5. So that's just the stable diffusion 1.5 model. Yep.
Yep,
Cool.
I didn't want to do that. Did I lose the last ones?
Yeah, looks like it.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Oh no,
Yeah,
they're
so
here. They're just in a folder.
in a folder. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'll just generate some more since it's so quick. Yeah, so we wanted to cover a couple other things today. I think that's a couple of the ones that we wanted to cover.
Yeah, I think the next thing was the story generation.
Yeah. So that, I guess this dovetails well into the story generation. I've got a 6-year-old boy, 7-year-old now, and one of the things that I was doing is reading stories to him, and I thought, well, let's see what ChatGPT can generate. And so I asked it. I said, look, write a story about Orion, who's a 7-year-old boy who has an interest in who rides a hot. I just came up with something totally fantastical, like who rides a hot air balloon to Mars or something like that. And then it came up with this story that, and I read it to him at bedtime, and it was very visually stimulating. I could see how, as a picture book, it would be really cool and stimulate the kid's imagination.
Yep.
And so it got me thinking, how can we use this technology to write custom stories? And I know, Roger, from your perspective, also from mine, how can we have the stories be something with true moral value? How can we have them teach a lesson? That I find the nexus of being able to do all that with a story and then to pass that on to like, maybe this is the future of learning.
Yeah.
Make a 60-second story about, this is what the traditional people of Australia, the Aboriginal people, did. They passed down knowledge through stories. So could we embed knowledge in stories in a way that is memorable and people can relate to, as a more efficient way of, because people exploiting that, you see YouTube or large companies exploiting, or TikTok exploiting it for getting watches. And I
Yeah.
really like Elon Musk's idea of maximizing the usage of Twitter for the non-regrettable minutes or something like that you spend on the site. So yeah, all that to say, like, along with this, like us coming up with this process for automating the generation of these videos, maybe we can do the same thing for a story. So instead of the video, we write a script, could be a story, short story, and we generate the artwork to go alongside with that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's one idea that we talked about with. And then when I was going around today, I had some spare time. I watched a video, and someone recently made a music video completely generated by AI. And so I thought, if you're doing a story, you really only need the pictures to be up for a short period of time, and then you're moving on to the next chapter in the story. So I thought you can see how these kind of images would be a great kind of backdrop to a narrative, combined with the text to speech that we've been working on.
Yeah. And so I find this area really fascinating too, and I've been working on some tools to this end. And so some of the, particularly the video generation is going to be pretty interesting because you can essentially, all a video would have to be is just 25 frames per second of AI generated images. And so you'd be generating a lot of images, no doubt. If you wanted to even just do a minute, you've got 60 times 25, but it's definitely possible.
I think that I don't think it needs to be. I think you're just generating a frame every few seconds, like a picture book. You're reading, oh, well,
Yeah.
not a picture
Yeah.
book, but a kid's
You don't
book.
have to do the full video. Yeah.
Yeah, you're reading a paragraph and you have an image to go with that, and you want it to be engaging and last for around 3 seconds, as long as you're reading that paragraph or that sentence. And as soon as the visual changes, then you just crossfade to something else, or and you could have other things going on, like you could have the what do they call that? The Ben's lens effect or whatever, where it's slightly zooming in or zooming out or panning across or something.
Yeah,
Keep people's attention captivated.
that's right. Yeah, Ken, no, like
Burns.
Steadicam, oh, and Ken Burns. Yeah, yeah. I've actually been toying around with that, with adding Steadicam and dynamic shots into this. So even if you just got a static image, you're adding a bit of movement, and you can also add overlays like smoke and rain to add a bit of movement as well. I didn't realize we were going to be talking exactly about this thing, so I don't have an example. I'm running it now, but I don't think it'll be ready in time. But yeah, basically creating a video from a prompt. I pass it a topic, and in this case, the topic is Roger is the last of his kind, a powerful android tasked with protecting the last remnants of humanity from an alien invasion. And so you can get these topics, you can just get ChatGPT to generate these topics for you. But the software that I've built will basically take the topic in. I could even be more brief about it. Take the topic in and generate a script based on the duration that you set, and then that script will have a beginning, a middle, and the end with a climax and things like that. And depending on how you do the prompt engineering, you can define what the narrative is, what the hero does. We've got to make the reader discover something about themselves in the process. So there's a lot of things, and then it generates the image, generates the overlays, and then renders, also generates the voice. So I'm hoping.
Lol.
I haven't got it running at the moment, but having some issues. But I would love to demonstrate that soon. I've got some in the next few weeks. I'll be working on that more to get that working. But it's a good point. Like we can start. It can start being a force for good in terms of building stories that are safe for kids to listen to. That doesn't have an agenda, but does teach them valuable lessons about life.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, even for me, like there was one moment this week and I was just like overwhelmed. I just wanted a break, but at the same time I was like, no, I'm gonna push through this. I want inspiring, motivating. I want to listen to something inspiring and motivating. And if there was like a go-to place where I could go and I knew I'd heard Joe Rogan talking about what it takes to be successful, for example. And so I just went and Googled one of those clips and I had to listen to that. And that was where I got myself going and back in the headspace. And I was just thinking, like, if there was an inspirational channel that you could go to for uplifting positive content that was like that. It was short, it was like designed to motivate you or something like that. It could be to put you in a different state. And I think if you've got the text, you've got the visuals, you've got the audio, like it could be a very compelling and powerful kind of tool. And I think starting with something short and just getting it perfected there would be the way to go. So
Yeah.
I would propose we just do something very contrived now. We
Okay.
just try and generate like a 10-second like story.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say, write a bedtime story about a cyberpunk girl who has what would you say? Like I was going to relate it back to this theme that we just had. So that was the picture. That was the prompt from the picture that we generated before.
Yeah. What comes to mind when I think about a cyberpunk girl who is perhaps a coder, and she's, I don't know whether we should do this or not, but stealing from the rich, giving back to the poor, or some other
Robin
kind
Hood.
of
Yeah, like
Robin Hood
Robin
style.
Hood style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Ned. Let's go with Ned Kelly. For anyone who is
Oh
out there
yeah.
in the
Okay.
world, Ned Kelly is an infamous Australian historical figure who stole from the rich to give to the poor. Yeah, so they tried to erase him from history, I think. But
Yeah.
let's try to bring home a cyberpunk girl who who puts into place. I don't know who, Robin Hood or Ned Kelly. Kelly narrative. Yeah, let's see. Am I spelling this all wrong? I just need to use capitals.
I've got some prompting story tips that we can add to help us create
Should.
something provoking.
All right. Into the scene, the following text to image prompt. So I've never done this before. I don't know how it's going to work. I usually wouldn't put the prompt in first, but given that we had it, I thought I would just give it a try. Now I've got some sort of problems with my plugins at the moment. So actually writing it behind the scenes, I have to refresh. I think that
So there's things that we can do to improve that. So you should add the text. Should be thought provoking. I'll add this stuff. I'll send this to you. Should be thought provoking. The story should start with a captivating hook that draws the reader in and sets the stage for the rest of the story. The story should progress through a series of plot twists and turns to keep the reader engaged and invested in the outcome. Story should be narrated in third person with a clear and consistent voice that reflects the style of the chosen author. So you can say in the style of an author if you want. Descriptions should be detailed and evocative, painting a vivid picture of the world and characters. Okay, there's a
Yep.
lot more, like the dialogue should be natural, but I'll just send this to you.
So I'm just gonna try like with the little bit of text. Essentially, what I wanted to do for this video was to generate a quick story, show everyone, and then make a couple of images to go along with it.
Yeah.
So from this story, break it down. I would put in here story. From this story, generate 5, let's just say 3 text to image prompts that visually capture the tone of the story and visual elements. I would just do that. Okay, so it's putting in a prompt here. Echo standing on top of a bridge overlooking a neon skyscraper. The skyscrapers tower over the city, and in the foreground, Echo's cyber enhanced abilities are on full display as she hacks into the city's computer system. So I think this is going to need enhancement because the prompt has no idea what Echo is. Replace the word Echo with, we say, Cyberpunk girl. Yep. So I've just got that prompt there, and I would take this prompt and I would see if I can. So this one should be.
Okay. The other thing you can do, maybe you could just show for the
I'm
sake
just
of
I'm just pulling
this.
it up in a different browser, so I
Yeah.
couldn't share it easily.
You could then ask it based on the script to write image to text to image prompt as well. That's one way to do it.
So there's our first image. And so this is a cyberpunk girl leaping from the rooftop as she flees from the authorities. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where we started. So let's see if we can. I didn't generate many images. I just generated the one, and we'll generate some more.
Okay, that's a bit better.
So this may warrant further.
Yes.
so, so I think we'll go 4 in a batch. That seems to work well. We'll just do 20 batches, and we'll see if we can get. But do you think something like this would work, Rog? Like we put together a story.
Yeah, I think the hardest part will be choosing the best image for each thing, which would normally be a human to do that. But if we wanted to automate it,
But if we want to generate, we can just cheaply generate like 100 images for each thing and then pick the best one, which is
yeah, so
basically what I
a
was doing for my.
human would then decide every 3 seconds to pick the best one.
And so it
So
might
yeah,
be
so
something.
a human would choose 20 images
Yeah,
out of a few hundred.
yeah. I mean, you could
Maybe
also
you'd have
let
a folder for every frame, and then someone would manually just choose an image.
we
We
could
could
ha-
try it to see how it goes on an automated thing.
we could have a
It
website where people actually vote on the images as well, like where we display the 100 images and then based after it's been up for a while, based on that we composite the short.
yeah,
So,
that's a good idea.
but yeah, so I guess we'll just let this
I
finish.
think if for some reason in my experience the stable diffusion models haven't been as good as, even though Midjourney is built on stable diffusion, I'm not sure why their model seems to be a lot more better, and every time you write a prompt it's like pretty incredible. So if it was at that stage, if these other models were already at that stage, then we could probably almost automate the whole thing.
So I guess if you have some ideas for stories, leave them below. If you have kids that want a story written, let
Yeah.
us know, and we will, or some other, could be anything. Let us know. So here's some of the ones who have generated. So this is jumping off the roof, running away from authorities, right?
Yeah.
Can you use the first image as a seed so we get like a visually similar image?
Yeah, you should be able to, and do variations. I'm not sure how. I would probably have to do that programmatically. I know you can do that in Midjourney. Some interesting. This is one thing these models are not good at is hands and limbs. Uh,
The
it
first one,
does
it
does get
specified
better.
a style. It was like cyberpunk art. Cyberpunk art. So this was the style of the first one.
Yep.
So if you, I guess you could do that. You could hack it by generating images in the similar style.
Yeah, that's probably
you-
what I would do is on the input to function is define a style element or get GPT to define a style element based on the script. There's a few different ways to do it.
Yeah, I'll let this run. Yeah, and so the next thing that while this is going, the next topic was actually making videos. I watched a cool video today, which I'll just pull up because why not? Copy link. So this was and it was Linkin Park that recently used the AI. So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, so I thought this was cool. He's plugging a couple of
Software, yeah. I think he's
different
got
bits
one
of
called
software.
Kaiba, or Kaiba is the
Yeah.
one that the generative video one.
So they're all cloud-based solutions. So you could do this with cloud-based things, but I guess where we're at is we wanted to run it like we want to
Do
build
you
the
want to,
scripts ourselves. Or
yeah, that's right. So our goal is to do all this stuff ourselves. Of course, it takes more time and a little bit more experimentation and getting things right, but it's pretty cool.
so yeah, he does cover some of this stuff. So this is Sharp Startup. And he seems like a guy. He's got it seems I've only watched a couple of his videos, but he has a genuine interest in exploring AI tools as well. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. And he even takes it into Adobe Premiere and does some post production there. So yeah, it's something worth checking out. We're almost finished with our images, so we can check out if the first one matches the. And I'd say this looks like a much better match for the style that we were looking for. Yeah.
I would say a different model. I don't think this is a great model to do this
Yeah.
stuff with. I think that Dreamlike Photoreal one would do a pretty good job.
So how do we, for anyone out there, there is Hugging Face models,
Yeah,
and then you can go text to image, and you can find which was the one we were using, Dream.
it's called Dream. Yep, that's it.
Dream. And was it this one?
Yep, the Photoreal one. Yeah.
So we can just copy the URL of that. I gather. Lets me copy it, and then
Yeah, I don't think you can do that with this. We will need to download the model and then put it in the models folder for the web UI.
oh yeah,
I think that's all you need to do, I'm pretty sure.
okay,
So on Hugging Face, there'll be a link to download the model.
yep.
And you download the CPKT file and or the safe tensor file and put it in. It's like Stable Diffusion models or something within the automatic 1111 installation folders.
Whereabouts do you think I save it? I don't know if you want to do this.
In the automatic 1111 installation folders, you should see a directory there called models. Let's have a look. Stable Diffusion Web UI, extensions, models. Yeah, there's a folder called models
Modules.
and models.
Oh, no, okay. Sorry,
Yep.
I didn't see that.
So just pop it in there, I think, unless there's any subfolders. I don't think there's any subfolders.
There is.
Oh, okay. Put it in the Stable Diffusion one.
Okay. Yep. So then I would just grab that from here somewhere. So that's copying the whole URL. So I just have to W get it. Okay.
Oh, that's not that. Yeah, just download there's a button on there.
Is there?
Should be. On the right-hand side, should be a CPKT thing in Hugging Face or Safe Tensors. I haven't got it open, but
Oh, you can't see my screen. Sorry.
oh, there we
Download
go.
the.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So we go back to the terminal here for anyone who's following along. I guess this is 2 gigs, so it'll take
Yeah,
a
it
few
is too
minutes.
big. Yep, that's right.
But essentially, what you're saying you do is you download that into the models file, then the UI will pick that up, and we can just theoretically reload this page, select a different model, use the same prompt, and see what different results we get.
Yep,
Is that how you would?
yep.
These
Hopefully
look
it
like
works.
people doing. That looks like a girl going for a run. That's.
I can't
showing me.
see. It's still seeing the terminal.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway,
And then if we just change the prompt to be, I don't know, photo of, I think with the dreamlike one, I think that's a tag that they use, a class name, which will give you a more detailed image.
I would take the art by these guys out to generate the image. What do you think? Do we want a photo or do we want?
I don't know. I haven't tried an artist. Oh yeah, if the artist is highly stylized, then it might not be the style we want. So yeah, it depends how, do you want realistic ones? You want animated ones? You want, yeah.
Okay. So we're 59% of the way there. Yeah, then the challenge would be like, how do you see composing the different images together? So once we have the script, I guess we didn't talk about that at all in this video. We would use a library to read it out.
Yep.
So what was that library we were playing with the other day?
The text to speech library we're looking at is Tortoise, Tortise, I believe. And that is one that you can run locally, and it's super realistic voices. And you can choose a bunch of different voices. You can train it on your own voice. Heavily uses GPU. We've tested it, Nathan and I, on his 3090. Works quite well. Yeah, it's a good way to get pretty realistic speech. Of course, there's a number of APIs that you can use that you pay so many cents per. I can see the video quality of mine's just coming back now, but probably because you're downloading the file. Yeah, so Tortoise TTS, that's one that we're going to use in our framework for any kind of video generation that we do. And so there's two things we need to do, right? One is convert the text from the script to speech. And then after that, we probably should adopt a library like Whisper and another extension to that to get the word timings. So we know when certain events occur in the video, like a certain sentence or a certain chapter or a certain scene change where we want the image to go. And as long as we can get those start and end times, which you can use various tools to do it's called a problem called forced alignment, where you're trying to align existing text that you might have with a word level timing of a script, so you can figure out where to trim or add an image in a video. So, oh yeah, cool. This is the new Dreamlike photo reel.
Yeah. So I'll just generate a bunch, I guess.
You can maybe put in the negative prompts. I'll also hit restore faces too, if it does any faces.
Okay.
And it might actually do better on photo. I think photo needs to be lowercase. I think that's a specific tag.
One thing I was going to say was that this prompt I think is not terribly good. Photo Cyberpunk. What was it supposed to be, like beautiful? Beautiful cyberpunk girl leaping from rooftop to rooftop. She flees from police. Foreground, sees, I would just say city skyline visible, neon lights, towering buildings, urban jungle. Authorities can be seen. I would say police. Police can be seen police chasing girl. Yeah, and I would see that they generated something.
Sorry, I was going to say just hit restore faces, which is just under the sampling method.
I'm just going to grab some of these other terms that I used from another prompt.
Oh, yeah.
Just bear with me 1 second, and I'll just copy and paste them in.
Maybe add things like, if you're looking at those images, maybe it's rainy or dark streets or nighttime, just to add a bit more mystery to it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put on. Sorry, bear with me. I know this is probably not terribly exciting. You might want to edit this out later. It's a realistic full body wide shot. Full body wide shot. I updated the prompt. It's quite long now, so I don't even know if it will fit in the.
Yeah, you've got 75 characters with Automac 1111, I believe. While you're doing that, I'll explain some things that have been running in the background on my computer. And I explained earlier about script generation / video generation tool that I've been working on. And the whole goal of that is to create a small short stories. Okay, it's doing some interesting
It's
things.
changing. Yeah, this model is the one that's not safe for work. So you got to be careful about what you put in.
That's
I
true.
put in a beautiful girl and photorealistic. So before I put the images back on the screen, I think I'm gonna check that it's safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll explain my thing again. So my goal was already written scripts that automatically generate a script prompt through GPT API, which given some kind of narrative. So my input was Roger is the last of his kind, a powerful android tasked with protecting the last remnants of humanity from an alien invasion. So I generated that concept and idea with GPT, but it could be just a short, even if you just give it Roger is the last of his kind fighting a war, like that would also work. Anyway, I've written then other prompts that generate the story for me. And I'll just read a snippet to you about the story. It says, it was supposed to be a peaceful morning. The birds were singing, the sun was shining, and the promise of a new day was in the air. But Roger knew better. He knew that something was wrong. As the last of his kind, a powerful android tasked with protecting the last remnants of humanity from an alien invasion, he was attuned to the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. Something was coming and it wasn't going to be good. Roger quickly activated his sensors and began scanning the planet, searching for whatever had roused him from his slumber. To his horror, he discovered a massive armada of alien warships heading towards Earth. He had to act fast or humanity would be wiped out. So this might not be for kids, but it's interesting. He quickly formulated a plan. He would gather what was left of humanity and lead them to safety. He would protect them with his advanced technologies to keep them out of harm's way until the alien armada had passed. So that is an example. I've only given it 1 minute to work with here, so it's pretty difficult to generate that in 1 minute. And I might be able to show you. And let me just see if it generated. I think it's still going.
Other ones were they're not safe for work. So I removed some of the terms.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I'll share my screen. Still generating the final put, I think.
Okay,
So
I think these ones will be better.
I'll just quickly share my screen. If I share my screen, will it share?
I can just go back to the camera side angle.
Okay. All right, cool. So can you see my screen? My computer is currently having a workout because it's exporting a video. I think, yeah, CPU's pretty high at the moment. So I don't think I can pipe the audio in, but that's a video that it's generated. That's the android, Roger, who's protecting mankind and is scanning everything, and there's a bit of rain and a smoke overlay happening. Then shortly there'll be an output video, but essentially that video will have a captions. So the story will be there, and there's also a voice. At the moment, I'm just using Amazon Polly, but eventually I'll use this Tortoise framework to create kind of a voice that is reading the story out loud. Yeah, and so it's all about that prompt engineering though to make it a really good script first and foremost, then getting a realistic voice, and then getting all of the images synced up to do something like what Nathan suggests is that every 3 seconds is change the image. But at the moment, you can see my program's just creating all of the outputs because combining overlays and smoke and the image all is quite time consuming from a video editing point of view when you're rendering it out. But yeah, it's similar sort of idea to what Nathan's coming up with, except I try not to do any manual steps because I'm lazy.
Oh, like all good engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one generated some kind of crazy images. Some of them you might want to, they're not safe for work, but
A bit
they're
provocative.
they're a bit provocative. Yeah, so I guess I'll just go through them quickly and I don't know if you can post them out if you think. But this was after changing the prompt, jumping off the roof like city to city, trying to escape the police. So she looks like she's like about to fall backwards off the roof there.
Maybe we should have just used a guy because it's just gone and done all these model poses.
It has. But like some of them, like this one, for example. So that's where it is. You need to generate like a bunch of them in order to get like good results. But yeah, it could easily be a cyberpunk guy, and it doesn't really incorporated the police in there enough for like my liking. So
Yeah,
yeah,
too many bikinis, I think, for a
I don't know.
cyberpunk.
Must be a cyberpunk theme.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I put in police there, but realistic police girl leaping from police.
maybe instead of beautiful girl, maybe use like terms like geek, hacker, stuff like that, just because I feel like this model's triggered by some of those things.
Yeah, I just put in, I haven't actually generated it, but it did say with this model you have to put in
Yep.
these negative terms. So it didn't
Yes.
generate it with that, but I'm thinking if I do, that should probably just generate better results straight away. Yeah, look, straight
Yeah,
away.
that's way better. Yeah.
I think it was probably the negative keywords that make the difference.
Yeah.
Look, that one's actually jumping off a building now. So anyway, all this to say that with a little bit of work, fine tuning, I guess you would come up with a theme, and then that would be the theme for the. You'd probably want to do a series because the amount of effort that goes into trying to create the theme, like engineering the prompts,
Yep.
you'd probably want to create like a mini series of stories, not just one to make it worth your while.
Yeah.
Would be my thinking.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing in terms of building a YouTube channel around it is one of the biggest metrics for YouTube is watch time. So yeah, it can be a little.
But if 200 people watch 1 minute of this video or of our short versus I don't know how many people are going to make it this far through this video.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
maybe more views with less time, and then yeah,
The thing I was thinking too is there's nothing stopping us from doing a longer story, like even 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and then we're going to be exporting shorts anyway, which are 1 minute. So that's the whole purpose of a short, is to be less than 60 seconds.
yep, yeah. So I guess I'll try and generate some images for this, and we can put together a short story, which is a proof of concept at the end if anyone wants to watch it.
Yeah, my video actually finished generating, so it's all going now, but I don't know how to pipe in the audio into this video. I have no idea how to do that.
I have to do it in post.
Yeah.
So here we go. Anyway, with this is with the negative prompts. So I think this is more
Yeah, that's a little
of
bit
the
more on
style.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something to mention is these image generation models, they've started to align them so that they're like if they produce not safe for work kind of content, then they'll actually output a black screen if
Yeah.
you're using some of the more recent models. And so yeah, some of the older models don't, but then also there's some like restrictions with that, like it crippled in some way. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it too much, but I could see some of these as inspiring characters or heroic characters or something, rich steal from the rich and give to the poor.
Yeah, and you could change this to be the style of 2D or anime or whatever it may be, which may actually yield slightly better results because, of course, replicating something that's photorealistic is like the biggest challenge. Also, you haven't got restore faces checked, so that would probably help a lot. And high res fix also helps a lot, but high res fix don't check that because it will increase the processing time significantly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just out of curiosity, I'll do it for
If you
like one.
reduce the batch size, yeah.
Okay. And then I don't even know
Also,
how to
you're
do it.
using which is one of the more simple, faster schedulers. You could change that to another one to get slightly better results as well.
I don't know what I should be picking. And then I can't see where to generate them anymore.
Looks like it's stuck, still generating. TA 1 hour.
Skip.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I think people have seen enough of this. So yeah, if there's something else that you want to see next time, let us know. We will do the text to speech thing and put together a story for you guys. Let us know if there's another topic you like, and then I guess we could just do some housekeeping to finish off the day. What do you think, Raj?
Yeah, sure.
So housekeeping side of things, I'll get up something more poignant. So what we've been trying to do is to put together a strategy for how we're going to make this whole project work. We like working together. We like working on this stuff. We both have agencies and clients and whatnot, but we want to get more into focusing on this space. And so the path that we see this taking is we've chatted with our respective teams, and the, they're keen to take on the work if we can bring in more work and work on more AI machine learning focused stuff. And on the side of, we'll have this YouTube channel, I guess, is the strategy for us to explore different topics, to showcase some of the things that we've been working on. And if some of that resonates with people, reach out to us. We'll have a consulting arm sitting on the back end of things that will be able to take on projects and do some of this sort of work for you, whether it's, and I guess over our careers, Roger lays it down that we're tinkering in this stuff, but really we're professionals who studied this stuff. We've been working in it for many years, and everyone is learning. We have the advantage of having decades of experience with technology to apply to this as we go forwards and learn. And for this is just like the rest of our career, like another new thing that's popped up and that we get to tackle in our careers, which is great. So yeah, Roger and myself have built many different solutions for people over the years, from object tracking, image recognition, image processing, right through to text to speech or speech to text systems. And so yeah, having this as a kind of focus, I guess, for us, a pinhead to lead the kind of trailblaze out into what's possible as new models come available. The space is just moving so fast, and we can just play with things without fear of judgment here, and then we can go and apply them in commercial ways on the back end, on the AI consulting side of the business. Yeah, is there anything you wanted to add, Rod?
No, that's fine. That's where we're headed with this, and we eventually hope to build a pretty big team in the background to tackle some of these more challenging problems, from content creation if you've got a large organization and you want to create content at scale, to other more nuanced, complicated things. So we've typically can work things out. I think that's the biggest thing, is as engineers, our goal is to work things out. Yeah, we'd love to talk to you about any project ideas or collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah, and so as we go, we're figuring out just all the hardware. Do we want to run our own hardware? Can we leverage stuff in the cloud? Like, we're doing a mix of everything at the moment. We'll obviously have our own projects that we focus on. So one being the automation of the video production and post-processing. We have some other ideas around a like ChatGPT based mobile apps that'll be deployed as a sort of white label application that you could run to take on a certain sort of digital persona, whether it's solving an issue like coaching, or if it's solving something like project management or professional development or something like that. We'll have an app for that. And so we're looking at the different, which particular technologies we focus on at this point and how we do that. Yeah, and then aligning the team to bring that to fruition. Yeah, it's interesting, exciting. Started off as a
Yeah,
side project. It's definitely growing to a little more than that.
yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. And I think I'll probably leave this video out. I'm probably at the end of this video, I'll leave you with one of the generated videos that my machine created while we were recording this video, which is the story I read out earlier. So I'll cut to that shortly and leave you with just 1 minute of a sci-fi character, Roger, saving his planet.
sounds good. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks everyone for joining
All right.
us. Yeah, if you're still here, subscribe, be the first subscriber. Leave a comment. Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
It was supposed to be a peaceful morning. The birds were singing, the sun was shining, and the promise of a new day was in the air. But Roger knew better. He knew that something was wrong. As the last of his kind, a powerful android tasked with protecting the last remnants of humanity from an alien invasion, he was attuned to the subtle shifts in the atmosphere. Something was coming, and it wasn't going to be good. Roger quickly activated his sensors and began scanning the planet, searching for whatever had roused him from his slumber. To his horror, he discovered a massive armada of alien warships heading towards Earth. He had to act fast or humanity would be wiped out. He quickly formulated a plan. He would gather what was left of humanity and lead them to safety. He would protect them with his advanced technologies and keep them out of harm's way until the alien armada had passed. Roger set out on